He looked at the woman standing in the lobby of the Hargrove Grand and saw a problem. He saw pressed slacks and a natural hairstyle. He saw dark skin and a rolling carry-on that didn't belong, in his mind, behind the front desk counter. What Regional Director Thatcher Mowry didn't see was the silver oak leaf cluster on the woman's service record, the 2 combat deployments to Iraq, or the fact that the hotel he was standing in, the one his name was temporarily attached to, was being considered for acquisition by a defense contractor whose board she sat on. He thought he was protecting the brand. He was about to learn what it costs to mistake dignity for weakness. The lobby of the Hargrove Grand in downtown Meridian, Georgia, was the kind of place that made people feel like they had arrived somewhere. 40-foot ceilings, marble floors polished to a mirror shine, a floral arrangement the size of a small car anchored the center of the room, white lilies and eucalyptus that smelled like money. It was the kind of hotel that catered to people who flew private and tipped in hundreds. And on a Tuesday morning in late October, it was running at 80% capacity, with a corporate conference booked through Friday. Lieutenant Colonel Marianne Okafor Webb, United States Army, retired, had driven 3 hours from her home in Savannah to attend that conference. She was 51 years old, stood 5'9" in flat shoes, and moved with the economical precision of someone who had spent 22 years making decisions that kept people alive. She wore charcoal trousers, a cream blouse, and a single strand of pearls that had belonged to her mother. Her carry-on was a matte black Rimowa. Her briefcase held a proposal that could redirect $40 million in federal contract spending. She had been standing at the check-in counter for approximately 40 seconds when Thatcher Mowry appeared. Mowry was the regional director of the Hargrove Hospitality Group, in town from Atlanta for the quarterly property review. He was 44, tan in the way that came from golf rather than sun, with a gold watch he adjusted every few minutes like it might run away. He had a smile that showed too many teeth and eyes that calculated before they warmed. He had been in hospitality for 18 years and had developed, over those 18 years, an exceptionally fine-tuned instinct for identifying guests who, in his private assessment, were not the hotel's target demographic. He crossed the lobby with the practiced ease of a man who had done this kind of thing before and always gotten away with it. "Excuse me," Mowry said, stepping alongside Marianne at the counter, addressing the front desk clerk over her shoulder as if she were not there. "Bethany, I need you to check on something in the East Wing for me when you get a moment." Bethany, a young woman with wide eyes and a name badge that she kept straightening, looked from Mowry to the guest at her counter. "Of course, Mr. Mowry. I'm just finishing up a check-in. It'll only take a second," Mowry said, still not looking directly at Marianne. Marianne set her credit card on the marble counter with a precise, unhurried click. "I was here first," she said. Her voice was the kind of calm that came from years of delivering orders in loud, dangerous places. It did not rise. It did not tremble. It simply was. Mowry turned and looked at her for the first time. Something behind his eyes recalibrated, the way a machine recalibrates before it makes the same mistake again. "I apologize," he said, smiling the too many teeth smile. "I didn't realize you were checking in. Do you have a reservation?" "I do." "Wonderful." He said it the way people say wonderful when they mean the opposite. "Bethany will take care of you." He leaned slightly toward the clerk. "After you verify everything thoroughly." He said it like a code. Bethany heard it exactly the way he intended it. So did Marianne. Marianne placed her ID beside the credit card. She said nothing else. She watched Mowry drift to a position near the concierge desk, where he stood with his arms crossed and his eyes moving between his phone and the front desk counter, monitoring. Bethany processed the reservation quickly, her movements sharp with discomfort. "You're in suite 1104, Colonel," she caught herself. She had read the title on the military ID out of habit. "I mean, ma'am, 11th floor, enjoy your stay." Mowry heard the slip. He walked back over before Marianne had lifted her room key from the counter. "I'm sorry," he said, his tone shifting into something corporate and smooth. "Did I hear that correctly? Are you active military?" "Retired," Marianne said. "Wonderful." There was that word again. "We thank you for your service. However, I want to make sure you're aware of our conference amenities policy. Guests attending the summit this week are routed through a dedicated check-in process. The general lobby is for standard hotel guests." He paused. "I want to make sure you're in the right place." Marianne looked at him steadily. "I'm registered for the conference. I have a suite reservation. I checked in at the front desk. I am in the right place, mister. She glanced at his badge. Mowry. Of course, Mowry said. I just want to make sure you have everything you need. I have my key, Marianne said. She picked it up, lifted her carry-on handle, and walked toward the elevator bank with the unhurried composure of a woman who had been underestimated before and understood that it always resolved itself. Mowry watched her go. Then he picked up his phone and called his assistant. Pull the conference guest list, he said quietly. I want to cross-reference it with the suite bookings. There's a discrepancy I want to verify. There was no discrepancy. He just wanted to make sure. The conference began at 2 o'clock in the ballroom on the second floor, and by 2:15 it was clear to anyone paying attention that the room operated around a gravitational center named Marianne Okafor Webb. She was not the loudest person there. She never was. But she was the one people turned toward when something needed to be settled. The one who asked the question that cut through 20 minutes of circular discussion in a single sentence. The one who had 3 separate men hand her business cards before the first coffee break. Mowry was in the room. He had positioned himself near the back wall, with a conference agenda he was not reading, watching the floor with the proprietary surveillance of a man who believed that observing a space was the same as controlling it. He saw the business cards. He saw the way people deferred. His jaw moved slightly, like something was being worked over in the back of his mind. At 4:30, as the session broke for the evening networking reception, he made his move. He intercepted Marianne near the registration table, where she was collecting a lanyard she had not picked up earlier. He brought 2 glasses of sparkling water and offered one with a smile. I wanted to introduce myself properly, he said. Thatcher Mowry, Regional Director. I oversee this property. Marianne accepted the glass. I know who you are, she said. Something flickered across his face. I hope this morning wasn't too much of an inconvenience. We occasionally have procedural hiccups with large conference groups. You questioned whether I belonged here, Marianne said. She said it the way she might describe the weather, factually, without theatre. That's what happened. Mowry's smile held. I apologize if it came across that way. Truly, I was only trying to ensure our guests had the correct information. The correct information, Marianne repeated. She looked at him for a moment, not with anger, not with the desire to wound, with the specific clarity of a woman who had learned to identify something precisely so that she could act on it later. I appreciate the water, she said, and walked away. What Thatcher Mowry did not know was that the man standing 5 feet behind him during that exchange was Owen Giddings, Vice President of Operations for Peregrine Defense Solutions, the contractor hosting the summit. Owen had heard everything. He had also, earlier that afternoon, watched Mowry send a hotel security officer to check the credentials of the only black woman in the room during the lunch session. The security officer had come back looking embarrassed. The woman had a keynote slot on Thursday. Owen pulled out his phone and sent a text to his CEO. We have a problem with the property management here. Going to need to discuss before we sign anything. The CEO, a compact woman named Sheila Broussard, who had built Peregrine from a 3-person consultancy into a $140 million operation, read the text at the dinner table in her suite on the 14th floor. She looked at the name of the hotel on the correspondence folder, sitting on her desk, and set down her fork. She had heard of Marianne Okafor Webb. Everyone in defense contracting in the southeast had. And if this hotel had treated her the way Owen's text implied, the acquisition conversation was over before it began. She typed back, find out exactly what happened. Document everything. Marianne did not report the incident that evening. She ate dinner with colleagues, reviewed her keynote notes, and slept 7 hours. She had learned, over 22 years of operating in environments that were not built for her, that patience was not passivity. It was a form of preparation. She also knew that she had not come to Meridian to fight a hotel director. She had come to present a proposal. She intended to do that. On Thursday morning, Marianne Okafor Webb stood at the front of the Hargrove Grand's conference ballroom and delivered 45 minutes on federal infrastructure reinvestment that left the room so quiet you could hear the air system cycling. She did not use a single slide that wasn't necessary. She did not waste a syllable. When she finished, the applause started before she had fully stepped back from the podium. Mowry was in the back of the room again. This time, he looked like a man who had miscalculated the height of a step and was still processing the fall. The keynote was live-streamed to approximately 200 remote attendees. The clip of her closing argument, a 2-minute segment about accountability in institutional decision-making, was shared by 12 people in the first hour. By midnight, it had 40,000 views on LinkedIn. By Friday morning, it had crossed 200,000. Someone in the thread tagged the Hargrove Grand's official account. Someone else posted the story of what had happened in the lobby Monday morning. Bethany, the front desk clerk, had told a co-worker who had told someone at the reception, and the information had moved the way information moves in small professional circles, quietly, efficiently, and completely. The thread was not angry, exactly. It was precise. Several people noted dates and times. One person posted a photo from the lobby, taken incidentally on Monday, that showed Mowry standing near the concierge desk with his arms crossed, watching the check-in counter. The angle was such that it was clear who he was watching. By Saturday morning, the Hargrove Corporate Communications Office had received 412 emails. 17 of them were from organizations with active contracts with Hargrove Properties. 3 were from journalists. Mowry did not know any of this yet. He was driving back to Atlanta, listening to a podcast about leadership, feeling reasonably satisfied with how the conference had gone. His phone rang at 9:47 a.m. It was the VP of Human Resources for Hargrove Hospitality Group. He pulled into a gas station and sat in his car for the 40-minute call. When it was over, he sat for another 20 minutes without moving. Then he drove the rest of the way to Atlanta with the podcast off and the windows down, which was something he never did because it ruined his hair. The HR process moved with the efficient misery of institutional accountability. There were interviews. There was the lobby surveillance footage, which had been reviewed and showed, in clean digital clarity, exactly what had happened at the front desk, and what had happened at the ballroom entrance, and what had happened near the registration table. There was Bethany's account, given voluntarily and in writing. There was Owen Gidding's account. There was the account of a retired army captain named Harold Dean, who had been standing near the concierge desk Monday morning, and had seen Mowry cross the lobby with a purpose that, in Harold's words, did not look like hospitality. There was also the text chain on Mowry's company phone, pulled by IT at HR's request, in which he had written to his assistant, Suite 1104, "Can you verify this guest has a legitimate conference booking? Seems off." The assistant had written back, "She's the keynote speaker, Thatcher," to which Mowry had not responded. The disciplinary meeting lasted 2 hours. Mowry came in with talking points prepared. He had spent 3 days writing them. He led with intent. He had no discriminatory intent. He had been performing due diligence. He had a track record of excellent performance reviews. He had never received a formal complaint. The HR director, a woman named Cassandra Lyle, who had been in the room for 100 of these conversations, and could tell in the first 5 minutes how they ended, let him finish. Then she played the text message on the screen behind her. Then she showed him the lobby footage, 37 seconds of it, with timestamps. "The keynote speaker," Cassandra said. Mowry looked at the table. "Mr. Mowry," she said, "you sent a security officer to verify the credentials of a woman who was scheduled to address the conference, on a stage in your hotel, in front of 200 people. I didn't know who she was," Mowry said. "That," Cassandra said, closing her folder, "is precisely the problem." The official determination was delivered the following Monday. Mowry was terminated for cause, violation of the company's equal treatment policy, misuse of authority, and conduct detrimental to the company's standing with a key conference client. Peregrine Defense Solutions had notified Hargrove in writing that they would not be renewing their property partnership, citing concerns about the organizational culture of the Meridian location. The letter had been signed by Sheila Broussard. Mowry appealed through his employment attorney. The attorney reviewed the file for an hour and called him back to say that there was not much to work with. His LinkedIn profile, which he had not updated in 3 years, suddenly received a great deal of traffic. Not the kind that leads to opportunities. He moved back into his guest room at his brother's house in Dunwoody while he figured out his next steps. His brother did not say anything unkind, but he also did not say anything encouraging, which was worse. His kids, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, who visited on alternating weekends, found out from a classmate who had seen something online. His 12-year-old asked him at dinner if the lady in the video was mad at him. He said it was complicated. His 12-year-old who was not complicated, said, "It didn't look complicated, Dad." He didn't know what to say to that. He poured himself another glass of water and looked at the table, the same way he had looked at the table in Cassandra Lyle's office, and the shape of it was the same. The long, flat surface of a reckoning he had built for himself, one small assumption at a time. Meanwhile, Marianne Okafor-Webb flew home to Savannah on Friday afternoon, had dinner with her husband, and spent the weekend in her garden. She was aware of the thread. She was aware of the footage. 3 journalists reached out through her business contact page, and she did not respond to them because she had not come to Meridian to be in a story. She had come to present a proposal. The proposal was accepted. The contract was signed 6 weeks after the conference. Her consultancy was engaged for an 18-month research and implementation project. At a value she did not disclose publicly, though people in the industry had a reasonable sense of the number. She did agree to one interview. It was with a small podcast that covered women in defense and federal contracting. The host asked her, near the end of the conversation, how she had stayed so composed during the incident at the hotel. Marianne was quiet for a moment, not because she was searching for the answer, but because she was deciding how much of it to give. "I've been in rooms where people decided what I was before I opened my mouth, my entire career," she said. "The military, the contracting world, hotel lobbies." She paused. "You learn that you have 2 choices every single time. You can spend your energy on the person who got it wrong, or you can spend it on why you were there in the first place." She let that sit for a moment. "I was there to do a job. So I did the job." The host asked if she thought justice had been served. "I think consequences happened," Marianne said carefully, "which is different from justice. Justice would mean it didn't happen in the first place." Another pause. "But I'll take consequences. They're what we've got." Thatcher Mowry eventually found work with a smaller regional hospitality management company in Knoxville. He took a significant pay cut. He wore a different kind of badge now, one that did not carry the same weight, and he moved through hotel lobbies with a new and uncomfortable awareness of how much you could not know about a person standing in front of you. Whether that discomfort became understanding or merely fear of getting caught again is the question that only time and his own conscience can answer. Marianne's consultancy website features a single quote on the homepage. It is not attributed to anyone famous. It reads, "Respect is not a reward for credentials. It is the starting point." It has been shared, screenshot, and reposted more than 100,000 times. Most people who share it don't know the story behind it. They just recognize it as true. That is usually how it goes with truth. It travels on its own, even when the person who said it has already moved on to the next thing. If this story reminded you that dignity should never have to be earned, that it belongs to every person who walks through a door, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Voices of Truth for more stories that refuse to let the wrong things stay buried. Because accountability starts with paying attention, and we're paying attention.